idealnetwork.com. The short version of the word ideal in Ideal Network stands for I do everything around life, love, liberty, and laughter. And there's much more. Thanks for listening in, and share this with the people that are most important to you. Now on to our show with Darlene Sartore and Peter Mingles. Let's get started.
Hello, everyone. Peter Mingles here. You're listening to us on Building Fortunes Radio. It's www.buildingfortunesradio.com. My name is Peter Mingles, so for all those people that spy or transcribe or whatever, at least you could spell it right. So it's Mingils. A lot of people spell it Mingles, and that's the way I would spell it, but that's not the way it is spelled. So the reason why we do our radio show specifically is I wanted Building Fortunes Radio to be able to give myself and a platform an opportunity to talk about the things that I wanted to talk about, because I knew that there would be some platforms that wouldn't let me. So for those people that are wondering, we are a little bit ahead of the times, if you know what I mean. We've been talking about doing this sort of stuff for a really long time. We started Building Fortunes at the tail end of 2012, beginning part of 2013. So this is when we put our plan in action. And I got frustrated because some people were kind of stifling some of the things that needed to be said. And I'm not talking about mean. I'm not talking about abusive. I'm not talking about anything except for the things that need to be said. So we decided to build Building Fortunes Radio. When I started this, excuse me, I was looking for some guest hosts, and we were just kind of building a relationship with Darlene Journey at the time. I said, Darlene, you know, you have the Ideal Network, and I've listened to you enough to know that you're one of those people as well, that you want to build, you know, this whole concept of, you know, life, liberty, love, laughter, a little bit on the, I'm going to use the term libertarian side, or my understanding of the libertarian side, which is basically the idea that, hey, listen, let me do what I want to do as long as I'm not infringing on your rights or your things. I'll let you do what you want, let me do what I want to do, kind of a philosophy. That's an oversimplification, of course. But I knew that she was of that mindset, kind of, but deeper. And I said, let's do some radio shows. So we've been doing some radio shows on buildingfortunesradio.com/ideal or Ideal Network since almost like the very beginning of Building Fortunes Radio. And it's very, very, very fitting that we're having this radio show today, which is the beginning part of January 2021, because the stuff that we've been talking about forever will probably lead a lot of people to say, did you guys have a crystal ball that you could look into the future? And the answer is, no, we just, you know, sometimes if you could see things, you don't need explanations. And if you can't see things, I don't think there's an explanation that's possible. So we just kind of saw it right away, all from the very beginning. So we are here today to talk about whatever we're going to talk about on Building Fortunes Radio on the Ideal Network radio shows. So Darlene, over to you.
Well, thank you, Peter. I am a little bit croupy a little bit today, so if my voice is a little scratchy, if I choke a little bit, please pardon me. I'm also been shedding tears as I just watched C-SPAN and watch Congress make a total fool out of freedom. They just trampled on every kind of freedom of speech, freedom of actions, you know, as long as no one's doing any harm and no one, anyway, I could go on, and of course I'm talking about that vote to impeach that happened today, and I guess the impeachment part of it don't bother me as much as the way that it is showing our young people a reason not to be involved with politics. Because our votes, our actions, no matter how good we are, whatever we do does not count. We have a dictatorship. We have a group of people who think that they can tell us about how to live our lives. And if you haven't gotten the idea yet from this pandemic, which was a plandemic, if you haven't woken up from that, I hope that maybe what's going on in Congress right now just might show you that we have no separation of powers. We have no constitutional protection at all. And so what I'm going to do over the next period of time is I'm going to do some promoting of some of the projects that some of us have started working on about a year or so ago, when we saw that things were definitely not going the way for those of us who truly are freedom-loving, life-loving, family-loving people. They've done everything they can to destroy our families. They've used the school systems just as Hitler did to make the children not respect their elders, to make them even think the elders are foolish and have nothing to say that's of relevance for today. Everything is history repeating itself. You know, I was born in 1944, October of 1944, and I would have never thought, as a 6-year-old child, when I was taken to the Philippines in 1950 and saw the devastation of the Philippine Islands, and start asking why then. Why do people do this to each other? Why do we have these wars? What is going on? And I invested my entire life to trying to answer that question. Why do we do what we do? And I began, it's been a long adventure because I didn't have the words back then. I just knew that as a child, I didn't have any real power, but I could listen. And I seldom played with children. What I did is I hung around with the adults, because I learned early on that, you know, you can ask questions and they just usually say, oh, you know, you don't understand, you're too young. You know, they always put you off, but they don't answer your questions. And as a child coming new onto this planet, we need to know these things. We need to know how this system works. You know, I have this funny thing that I used to say to the parents that I was teaching new parents as in the HA League and et cetera, how to nurse their children and how to raise the kids and et cetera. You know, I had some single mothers that never even thought about, you know, nursing their children or, you know, any of these, the separation from real life. And I began to realize during those early years as a young mother myself that I was seeing something going on here that, you know, and one thing my mother said to me that made an impression is she said, Darlene, I didn't get a chance to nurse you because for some odd reason I didn't produce the milk that I needed and et cetera. And the doctors said that you were not going to thrive if you didn't have additional formula and et cetera. And she says, I do hope that you will take care of your health in a way that when you get to be a mother, you don't miss out on that. And that's the kind of mothers we need. We need mothers and fathers that are going to encourage us to work with nature and nature's God. Unfortunately, I must say that I have very few in my family that I could proudly say that they've done that. Okay? I have my oldest son's wife is a shining example of being a good mother. You know, she nursed her kids, she took care of them. She became a nurse and she began working with the Catholic diocese in the community. And I must say, of all the children, I can say that Rose is one of a biggest rose, the flower that I can say. And she said to me when she had her first child, she called me jokingly, kind of saying, but when does the instruction manual arrive? And I just laughed at it's an on-the-job training. And so this is what I feel like right now we're doing in the political arena. We're on-the-job training because very few people in America today really know the Constitution, really know the Declaration of Independence, really know the history of those who made the sacrifices to give us a relatively free nation. If anybody's ever picked up an IRS booklet, they'll see on the very front of the cover that it says voluntary compliance. Okay, what happens if you don't volunteer? We'll probably take all of your properties and we might even shoot you. In other words, we have slavery by volunteering. They make it seem like we really don't have a choice, or it would be in our best interest if we would do this. Well, this is what I saw happening with women as they were having their babies and et cetera, is they were made to think, you need to get into the workforce. You need to put your kids in daycare. You need to put your kids in school. You need to have a life of your own. You don't need to be a full-time mother and stay at home and take care of those kids. Let somebody else do that for you. I can look back and I can see so many things over the last many years. As I traveled the planet, I got the opportunity with my father and then with my husband as we began to see the differences in our planet. And every time we would come back to the United States on vacation, we were always appalled at the things that, in a way, we were glad we were missing out on. So many of the demonstrations and calling out the National Guard against the children on the campuses, I didn't realize at that time, but I was beginning to wake up to the realization that these were all sorts of tests going on just to see how much they were dumbing down the American people, how the people were not standing up for their rights. Every one of the college professors and et cetera that have been involved over the years of teaching this, whatever you want to call it, Hitlerism, fascism, communism, socialism, all of these isms. This is not America. This is not what made America great. America was designed to work by free enterprise, by each of us getting involved at the local level. And if everything's operating in the family and the local level properly, there's not going to be anything left at the top for those elected people that we say, well, we do need a little bit of, maybe some guidance. We do need some rules. We do need a constitution. We need somebody that's protecting it. And, if you go back through history and you see what's going on, you begin to realize that history is continually repeating itself because we're not learning what history has been teaching us. Something that I've noticed, and I guess I notice it because I'm very much both an interfaith minister and an interracial. I think that everyone should be stepping up and making their thoughts heard. And one of the things that I was concerned about over the last few months is the lack of the colored people in peaceful rallies. And I cannot believe I have so many family and so many people that I am friends with, and they are not represented by those who are in the riots. It seems they show the rioters as those of color and the white people as sitting back doing nothing. Well, I got news for you. What I saw going on and have been seeing going on recently is this is all trickery by white people that are actually putting us back into slavery. And if we're not careful and we don't take action now, we're going to see another civil war in this nation because people are going to start waking up. We just had, and I'm going to do a little commercials here. Before on Wednesdays, we have our education committee meeting for the USARepublic.net website, projects that we've been putting together. there were people quite some number of years ago, 20 years ago or so ago, that began realizing something isn't smelling right. They were the forerunners of realizing, and I got involved back in the 1970s after reading the Ayn Rand book of Atlas Shrugs and realizing, these are some of the things that I see that's happening. And here's a lady from the communist nation of Russia writing about what's happening. And so if you've not read that book, I suggest that you at least get the Cliff Note version of the Atlas Shrugged and figure out the people in the storyline and their stances. What are they described as, and et cetera? And of course, the question that Atlas Shrugged is, what happens when this person called Atlas is holding up the world? What happens if Atlas shrugs? They're going to drop the world? Well, I don't know about you, but I'm feeling like that right now. I'm feeling like the Atlas going, goodness, I'm not sure if I can hold up this world of evil anymore. And we need to get up there and help Atlas hold up the world. So that's where I'm trying to find out how to make this so simple that young people can realize the value of what they have. We do have some freedoms left. We do a risk. There's a lot of risk. Every one of protecting your freedoms come with some risks. Speaking the truth is going to get you in some trouble if you're not careful. So the first thing you need to do is to go out on the internet and start looking for people like us. People who are, and I'm going to get this website here, I'm going to talk about it for a few minutes, and it's called USA Public, and it's spelled with a CK at the end of Republic. And that's because in 1755, the dictionary in 1755 spells Republic, REPUBLICK. So we have to go back into history and find out why certain words are changed, how the de facto now uses words that were used in the freedom movement in 1776 that gained us freedom from enslavement to England. And, a lot of people have lost their lives from the very beginning. Now, have we made a lot of mistakes along the way in setting up our nation? Did we treat the Native Americans, and I say we because I'm one of the founders' relatives. I come from the Ball family, George Washington's wife's family. And so history is important to me. And I think that it's important for us to go back through the time. And one of the things that I asked my family was, why were they Native Americans? Why were the Indians vilified? Why did we do what we did? The Trail of Tears and things that I started learning about. Why? What was that all about? Well, we were told in our schools and et cetera that the Indians were attacked the white man, and so the white man had to defend themselves. That's not true. When you go through the real thing is, England realized that the Native Americans were teaching the Americans, and of course they called them Indians back then. I used the right term. They were actually Native Americans. They were the red man who came to America, to North America. And if you go into the histories and et cetera, you find out that tribe of red man, or the red tribe, was a very intelligent tribe. And they formed their own ways of learning how to live in alignment with nature and nature's God, as talked about in our Declaration of Independence, because they were stewards of the land. Most of them, the tribes, were nomad, and they followed the food source and et cetera, and they never killed off things more than what would allow to be able to replenish themselves. They were a very survival group of people, and they were very peaceful. Now, we do know that there began to be wars and et cetera between some of the tribes, which, we had that in in the Wild Wild West. We had one village against the other and et cetera. So yes, we do go through learning lessons. But it was England and their people who actually attacked the white man in the disguise of the red man's uniform, or, togas and et cetera. Start looking back through accurate history, we begin to realize there's a difference in what we're hearing today in our society, in our cultures. And one of the reasons that we have free, supposedly, tax paid by the backs of the landowners for schools. If you don't realize where the money comes from, it comes from the landowners. We're forced to pay taxes for those schools. Otherwise, our land gets taken from us. You don't own your land if you don't pay your taxes. That's not fair. But if we start and look at who is actually the only people that are being harmed, the landowners, it's the families. And they wanted the schools to be under, and if you go back to Abraham Lincoln, he called them blabby schools, and he went and learned underneath the trees. He educated himself because he realized he wasn't getting an education that was accurate. And, there's a lot of people in today's world that are beginning to wake up and realize that schools are not teaching accurate information. And so, look for people that are homeschooling their children. Look for people that are libertarians, that are trying to figure out what the actual facts is how do we learn to be self-governors? Because, the Bible says, know thyself. And if you know yourself, you're not going to do harm, because you realize the golden rule is if you do harm to other people, they're going to do harm to you. So we have this dynamic of understanding how to live. So I'm going to ask you as listeners to go to the usarepublic.net site and look at what we put up there now. Our education system today, our education committee today, invested almost 3 hours of work and of what we were going to put ourselves towards over the next year or so, that we're going to go through a crisis, a big crisis in America. And we want very much to prevent any kind of violence, any kind of insurrections of any sort. But there's already talk in our states for us to secede. There are people that have been trying to sound the alarm for a long time, and I had a violence develop to actually have a war. So I would like for you to go to buildingfortunes.net/ideal, and that is my site for these air filters. And I know we only have a couple minutes left, and I want to ask Peter if he wants to reveal the new website that we're putting together to help market this, because this is something to save your lives, is to get these air filters into every building that there is, and you can help to do something. This is the least you can do, is sign up free as an affiliate and start learning what you can do, just helping to stop this virus. So, Peter, you want to spill the beans?
Absolutely. Yep. So this is the first time it's heard. If you're listening in live, We just registered this domain name recently. It was a suggestion of someone who said, this is a really cool domain name, and I agreed. So we wanted to have a separate page or a separate website for just the air filters and air filter-related stuff. So it's spacetechviruskiller.com. Space tech, like outer space, tech like technology, virus, and everybody knows how to spell virus at this point, killer, KILLER.com. So spacetechviruskiller.com, and then we would put / and Darlene, what was your username? Ideal Health, or what do we do?
IDEAL. Yeah, IDEAL. Ideal. Yeah.
So if you're listening in live, this won't work today because we're just building it today. But if you are listening in an archive, if you go to spacetechviruskiller.com / ideal, you'll be able to go to Darlene's specific site. So that'll be right in the next couple of days. But I'm excited about this only because we got to take back control, and taking control of your own health to having something in your own premises or your own car or your own office to be able to help kill the coronavirus that's existing now or may happen later on or whatever they're going to throw at us next, I think is very important towards your personal as well as your family as well as your employees' health. So back to you, Darlene.
Okay, well, that's the dynamic. We've given you several places to start. Go to the USA Republic, REPUBLICK.net, and review what we've put on there so far. We are actually forming and have formed with the Hagen, etc., a new USA. So we are now actively going to take back America by whatever means we have to. Hopefully it's going to be legally done through the actual redoing. Those states that want to succeed or whatever that they decide to do, if it gets bad, we've got to be prepared. But let's try to do what we can through the means that we already have. We have a de facto government in charge right now, and this is a dictatorship. So stop talking about this being a democracy. It's not. This is a dictatorship that we live in. Start facing reality. We can make a difference. We can save America, though. Back to
Absolutely.
You.
Yep, we're going to catch everybody next time on Building Fortunes Radio. If you go to buildingfortunesradio.com / ideal, buildingfortunesradio.com / ideal, you'll be able to hear this as well as other ones, and we'll catch you next week. Thanks, Darlene.
Thank you, Peter.
You've been listening to the Ideal Network Radio Show on buildingfortunesradio.com. Thanks for listening. Be sure to check out the buildingfortunesradio.com website to hear more segments with Darlene Sartore and Peter Mingles. Darlene encourages everyone to join the Ideal Network so you can say, I live the ideal life, where I do everything around life, love, liberty, and laughter. It's been our privilege to have you listen in. Darlene, Peter, and I want to say thanks for listening and ask you to spread the word, tell a friend, join our newsletter, and go make a difference in your world.